Okay, we're really getting into it now. Co-main event, top tier featherweight matchup. We've got Dan 50K Ige against Damon Action Jackson. You won't want to miss this one for sure. Right off the bat, Dan Ige has been a perennial contender in the featherweight division. It's tough to remember a time when he was not in the top 15 or hanging around the rankings. Dan Ige faces Damon Jackson, who's a longtime UFC veteran, took a lot of time off to fight in LFA between UFC stints, and now that he's come back with renewed resolve, looking to make a run at the top 15, and that happens right now. Tail of the tape, as you can see right here, Dan Ige, 1673.1 versus 1736.8 for Damon Jackson in terms of their cage calculus ratings. That's going to come out to, according to the algorithm, a 59.1% win probability for Damon Jackson. That means that fighters who are rated around 1736.8 will beat fighters that are ranked 1673.1, roughly 59% of the time. But according to the divisional rankings, Ige a little higher in the UFC's ranking. Damon Jackson trying to prove that wrong. In terms of the cage calculus rankings, Damon Jackson right now is the number 10 featherweight contender in the UFC's rankings. If you go down a little bit, this is where it starts to get a little more interesting. Dan Ige has fought the best of the best in the featherweight division for a long, long time. He's been fighting title contenders, potential future champions for quite some time, and his average opponent rating is 1708.7, which is pretty astronomical in the grand scheme of things to think how long Dan Ige has been doing this, and that's just the average rating of an opponent. His average opponent is a ranked opponent, pretty much. Damon Jackson does not have the average opponent rating that's high, but he does come in with a very high finishing rate. He's got knockouts and submissions, 15 submissions across 22 pro victories. That's nothing to shake a stick at. All said and done, the Vegas odds makers thinks Dan Ige is going to get back into the win column and establish himself as a contender and try and move back up the rankings. So why does Cage Calculus have Damon Jackson as a 59.1% favorite, whereas the Vegas odds makers think that Dan Ige is going to get the win? This is again a tale of two fighters going opposite directions. Dan Ige has lost 4 out of his last 5 fights. Once he beat Edson Barboza, the UFC said this guy is going to be doing bigger and better things, going to keep racking up the performance bonuses. They put him in there against Calvin Kattar. He loses by decision. He recovers, a relatively easier matchup against Gavin Tucker, gets the 22-second knockout, lives up to his name, 50K Ige, gets the bonus, but then 3 consecutive losses Ige's coming off of right now. Chan Sung Jung, Korean Zombie, he loses by unanimous decision. Josh Emmett, who's going to be fighting for the interim featherweight title coming up in February, loses to Josh Emmett by unanimous decision and then loses to the dangerous Russian contender Movsar Evloev his last time out last June. So Dan Ige is definitely come down a peg. 1673.1 is still a relatively highly rated fighter. You see 23rd out of 70 featherweights. He's still a relatively highly rated fighter despite losing 4 out of his last 5. Imagine where he would have been 5 fights ago. He would have been very high up towards the top of the featherweight rankings and could have been very close to a title shot if he'd been able to string 1 to 2 more wins together. Damon Jackson, on the other hand, has won 4 in a row and 5 of 6 since rejoining the UFC. His lone loss came to Ilia Topuria, who himself is working his way up the featherweight rankings, about to get a title shot. It's a little far off. I say about to get a title shot. He's on his way. I don't really see too many people in his way who are going to stop him the way Topuria is fighting. He's just imposing his will on people. Damon Jackson trying to get into those rankings. This is his shot to do so. Came back, Charles Rosa, unanimous decision. Then gets an arm triangle choke against Kamuela Kirk. follows that up with a unanimous decision against Daniel Argueta, who's fighting on the prelim card. You can check out that video at cagecalculus.com. That preview of his fight is over there. And then in his last bout, 1 minute and 9 seconds in, gets a ground and pound KO victory over Pat Sabatini. Damon Jackson can finish a fight any number of ways, and I think that's what's going to happen. Damon Jackson is 4 inches taller than Ige. He's 5'11". Ige is 5'7". I think Damon Jackson is going to use his reach advantage to keep Ige at bay. I don't think Ige is going to be able to get a finish here, so I think Damon Jackson is going to use the length to keep Ige at bay, and if Damon Jackson sees some sort of weakness, he's the bigger submission threat. So I think there are just any number of ways Jackson can finish this fight. I don't see as many clear-cut paths to victory for Dan Ige, as nice as it would be to see Dan Ige get back in the win column, because he truly is a staple of this featherweight division, and it'll be very tough to see him lose a 4th fight in a row, 5 out of 6. It's going to be really tough to come back from. I don't think he's in danger of being cut, but it's going to be very tough to come back from, especially if he wants a title fight in the future. That's a long road ahead to come off of 4 straight losses to get a title shot at some point in time. So I think Damon Jackson strings together another win in a row, continues his career resurgence after he left the UFC, went to smaller promotions. He's worked his way back and is now 5 out of 6. I think he gets a win over a ranked contender, pulls off the very slim upset, backs up the Cage Calculus algorithm, backs me up because I'm going with him, and I think Damon Action Jackson puts a lot of the featherweight division on notice. Bigger and better things to come for him. Now, what we got next is going to be the main event, Sean Strickland versus Nasruddin Imavov. Stay tuned for that video. If you want more information about what we have going on at cagecalculus.com, go to the website, check out our other previews, other video content, recaps, rankings, matchmaking, profiles of past fighters. I know it's been a while for those of you who are hanging on. We got sidetracked when we were going to do the men's greatest of all time debate, but we've not forgotten about it. It's coming. So all that content at cagecalculus.com. Stay tuned for the main event video and preview coming up very shortly. And at the top of the hour, just very shortly now, the card's going to get kicked off. So make sure you check out all the previews that are already there and stay tuned for the last one that's coming.